Welcome, welcome everybody to Cafecito Power Break. Hope you guys have your cafecito and are ready for this power break. Whether it's tea, cafecito, mud water, smoothie, whatever you got, but this is like your 20 minutes of taking a break. So we're happy to have you here. Um, my name is Sandra Noemi Torres. I'm the founder of United Latinas, and I'm here because I want to see more women empowered. I want to see more women and more voices amplified. And I think it's important that we create the spaces and the platforms to get more women having the opportunity to share what they've learned throughout their careers, through their lives. So I'm happy for and excited for today's guest. We've already got comments going in. So today's guest is one of our members of United Latinas, a thought leader in the HR space. She is the founder of Latinas Rising Up in HR. And if you have any questions on this topic, definitely please feel free to pop them in the chat. But I'm going to now bring up Priscilla Guaso. Welcome, Priscilla.
Hey, Sandra. Thanks for having me.
Yay. I'm so excited for this talk. This is such a great, when this is such timely. I think for many people right now is talking about this, really taking bold steps in your career and in your salary. How do we ask for more money? So I know that you're going to cover a good portion of that, but first introduce yourself. Give us a little bit about who Priscilla is.
Sure. Well, I first want to thank everyone that's joining us. Sarah, Hadassah, Joanna, thanks for jumping on here. It's just so nice to see the comments and have everyone participate. But Sandra, I am amazed by of all the things you're building, and I had to gravitate towards what you're building with United Latinas. As a founder of Latinas Rising Up in HR, I know it's a lot of work, but it's a work of passion, right? Passion and love, and wanting to make a change. For those that haven't met me or know what I do during the day, I focus primarily on being an HR leader at CDW. It's a technology company. I love it. I focus on succession planning and really creating development opportunities for our coworkers. And then in the evenings or the nighttime when we have that free time, I spend a lot of my personal time focusing on our community as Latinas, specifically in our niche, what I do in human resources. I would love to see more Latinas in HR because I feel like that is the center, right, of where we can actually influence and make change within corporations. And more than anything, it's just great to connect as a community, right, and help one another out, especially when we can be like the only one in the room. And sometimes we're seen as the experts, the ones that have all the answers, and then we run in our offices and are like, what am I doing? It's just the reality, right? And so
Yeah, for sure.
it's great to have a place where we can come together.
Yeah, no, I love this energy and I love this time and this space for sure. So yes, we definitely want to see more Latinas in HR because give us a little bit about the HR role. Like, do you have a say on, especially when we're trying to expand this DEIB, give us a background on that role.
Yeah. So HR, I love it, right? I started to get comfortable now. But within human resources, for those that have never thought of it as a career, please start Googling it and searching it because we need more Latinas in the space. But if in the time that we have, there's a number of career moves that you can make within HR. You can focus on a specialized area, right, in compensation, benefits. As a recruiter, you could be more of that generalist and do a little bit of all as an HR business partner where you support leaders and helping influence decision making, right? You could also work on things more specialized like in workers' compensation, safety, risk, and the list goes on and on. I work specifically in talent management where I focus on development and I love it. There's also learning and development and training and onboarding. Again, it just depends on what your strengths are, right? I think we should all play on our strengths more than anything. But there is a wide breadth of what you can do within human resources. But to answer your question, do we have influence? Do we have power? I think with power, there comes a lot of responsibility too, right? And so yes and no. I see us as more of those that influence decision making. We don't always make that final decision, but we are your advisors. Hopefully, in most places, you're trusted advisors. I know some folks have a love-hate relationship with HR. I'm not oblivious to it because unfortunately, there's not, as in every career, right? There's not always like the greatest, best people in those roles for all different reasons. And so my hope is that we bring leaders that are really more focused on purpose-driven, purpose-led, looking to help our community out more than anything. but still being equitable, right? Everything has to come back down to that. But I'm really excited to be here to share some insights, right? And kind of pull back the curtain a little bit to help our community, because these are a lot of things that I've learned and seen, or we've seen in my community, right? That we'd love our community to know, specifically as Latinas. And especially, I'm sure we'll talk about this in a little bit, right? With the wage gap and all of that, there's a lot that we can do, but sometimes we just don't know, right? So you have friends in HR. If you don't have a friend in HR, I recommend finding one because you'll want that person on your side as your personal advisor as you build your own board, your personal board.
So there's a lot that you said that I want to pick on some of those for sure, but not a lot of women. And I would love in the comments, we do need more representation in HR. So there's usually in one HR person, right? And they may not be someone that you jive with. So how do you either develop that relationship or figure out another way to get what you need to get done?
Yeah, I think a lot of, not everyone gets along with everyone. I think of it back when we were in school, right? It's like, have you been on a project and you just didn't get along with everyone on the team, but you try to figure it out, right? And I think the same thing goes in the workspace. And then there's a couple things like the politics in some organizations, unfortunately, that you have to learn to maneuver. And I don't always want to say that you become a chameleon, right? But it's really, for me, it's finding what are the organizations that are aligned to your personal mission and your drive, and that they're also, aligning to that. So for me, I would say for those that are having a rough time, it really, sometimes it comes down to, well, it could be two things, maybe even three or four, right? But I'd say a lot of times is coming in with what intentions are you coming into the conversation with, right? Sometimes we already channel that energy before we were walking into the room, but also remembering it's a job. Right. I know if you would have talked to me maybe 15 years ago when I first started, my job was everything. It was my life. It was my life. And I will say over time, I've realized, there's life too. And so it's having a fine balance, but it takes time. And I think, sorry, I'm reading the comments as well. And Hadassah, yes, we need more representation in HR. Hi, Arlene.
Yeah. So you brought up a lot of points. So there's a lot of people that aren't in the HR field, but definitely want to advance and take bold steps in their career, like want to move up to that next level. So how do they what have you learned that is the best way to, besides building the relationships, right? And understanding your profession. I think that that's a big key, especially when we want to think about asking for salary raises or increases, or really owning our own value, right? Really understanding our position and what it is that we're contributing to that organization. What do you feel is the best way to go approach? Listen, I know I've been here for X amount of years, or I'm here new and there's this I know that I'm being paid less because I know this Latina wage gap. This is a real thing. This is not a make-believe thing. So how do I position myself as a thought leader when maybe that person's not in a position right now that is kind of warranted for that?
So my head's going three different ways with what you just shared.
Okay. All right.
I'm going to start first with when you start with an organization, right? And when you're going into an organization and you're accepting a job, we get excited, right? Many of us but just kind of, I show my emotions on my sleeve. And when I get an offer, I'm like, yes, of course I want to be part of this organization, or I would have never applied, right? Hold that emotion for a minute, right? Pause. It's not a bad thing. Just pause, because just like you do it when you're buying a house, you don't want to show all the excitement right away. But again, take a look at it, because when you join a new organization, that is the time that you can actually jump your salary, right? That is the one time, because once you start in an organization year over year, the most you're going to see is like 2 to 5%. Sometimes it goes a little bit more, right? And so I've seen folks be able to jump their salary between 25% to 45%, but also making sure at the end of the day, right, being your HR advisor, that you're still able to produce, right? Because we want to make sure, yes, you're accepting, you're negotiating, but you know your worth, you know what you can do. I always say negotiate. And I follow my own advice. This is the one thing I learned very early on in my career. I remember when I first started, I was making like $12 an hour. So it was a long time ago, right? But I was making hourly. And I was like, no, I want $13.50, right? And I remember doing that. And ever since that moment, I think I got like 50 cents more, but I got 50 cents more, right? So now as an executive and as a professional, it's the one thing I keep saying is make sure you do your homework. There's a lot of websites like Glassdoor, PayScale, salary.com. There's I think if you go to bot.uiillinois.edu, there it shows you all the salaries at public schools, right? So you can see that information live. And so just great ways to make sure you're doing your homework, because I've also seen as an HR professional folks trying to negotiate, and I'm like, you are just jumping the gun on this because it's not even within the range of,
Yep.
I don't know where you did your homework, right? And so you just want to be credible, right, with what you're doing and what you're asking. So that's the first part, is always making sure we're negotiating from the very get-go and knowing your worth. The second part that you mentioned about, once you're at an organization and you're ready to, jump to the next place, right? And that's always sometimes hard. That's actually where I see a lot more of the gap when I speak to Latina professionals is, I've been at this company for 15 years. They kind of see me as the coordinator or the admin I was back in the day. How do I make that jump? How do I make that change? I will say I have holistically, right? I don't want to say per person, but holistically, our community as Latinas, we do not speak up enough. And it kind of hits us the last minute and then we get upset. And so what I would say is really start formulating a strategy for your own career. Always. I mean, just like we do that with our finances, hopefully, right? Just like we're doing that with our friends and we take toll on who we want to stay connected with, do the same for your career. Take lead in those conversations. Set up that time with your leader. The best leaders will listen to you and they'll just be like, great, you're taking leadership on your own development. Yes, let's have a one-on-one for 30 minutes and talk about it. But you own that agenda and you own what you're looking for next. So once you do have that, you're like, what do I do, right? What do I ask for? And there's a lot of different things you want to take a look at, because it varies between nonprofit, for-profit, right, to corporations, of what resources are available for your growth. And so if you're working in the corporate sector, there's a lot of budgets that you can tap into. And I would recommend trying to find what are those business needs that the company's trying to solve and what you're trying to develop personally to make that connection a lot more seamless, so that your leader is like, yes, of course I want to send you to that conference, or of course I want to send you here. You're solving this and you're also building your knowledge. Take a look at certifications. That's great to have, whether you're staying at an organization or you're leaving, because that stays with you, a certification. So definitely take a look at that as well. But I can't stress enough of how many times many folks in our community just wait, right? And it's also cultural, right? We just kind of wait. We think our hard work's going to help spread what we've been doing. And unfortunately, that's not the case. A lot of our colleagues that are white, Black, Asian, right, they're raising their hand and they're saying, hey, look at me, right? And so that's another component that I would love to see us take on more, and create your own individual development plan. Google, I mean, there's a ton of templates that you could run off of and really try to build what your development plan is. But it requires sitting down, thinking about it, and really being strategic about your own career, because it takes time. It's not just something that happens out of the blue. Or you could be like me, where, I slithered my way eventually and found where I wanted to go. But it does take time, just like you plan for anything else. It takes time.
Yeah. Oh my God. I love everything that you just shared, because it's all so important, right? I think these are some of the things, like even when I was starting in my career, just seeing other Latinas, and some people come to work and they check out come 5, 6 o'clock, they literally shut down and they're out, right? So like some of the things and attributes about us that really help us get to that next level is saying, I'm committed to what you just said, to the goal of what this organization is trying to achieve. And I'm going to give my best effort, my best self, and use all my skills to really help the company achieve that goal. And a lot of that thinking is what really, on top of what you just said, getting certifications, make sure that you're reading books on the industry, make sure that you know your lingo, make sure that you know your stuff, so that when you are at that point of getting ready, it's not even a question. It no longer becomes does she deserve one? It becomes a claro que sí, like you are a powerhouse. You're in it, and you're not a checkout at 5 or 6 o'clock person. You're committed to the agenda of what the organization is trying to reach. And that is so profound. And I'm so glad that you shared that. Owning your own development, for sure.
It really is. And the thing is as a community, we trust a lot of the people around us, right? We trust that they have our best interest, but no one has the best. No one has your best interest like you do. And
Yeah.
so I say, really take, just like you pour love and focus and attention and trust into everyone else, do the exact same for yourself. And if you don't do it now, you'll learn eventually, because we all have to experience it at some point in our careers.
Yeah.
But I have to do a shout out for what Hadassah has mentioned, and really making sure data. Yes, you're 100% right. Making sure that the data is there as you're looking to ask for these items, right? And taking a pulse, right, with what, taking a look at what other opportunities are out there, what other companies and best practices they have, and saying, why not me, right? Why not invest in this in me? Because it's not just because you joined a company, it doesn't stop there, your investment, right? If anything, it's a two-way street, right? And so if you ask for it, if they don't give it to you, that's something different, right? And we'll probably have to talk about something separate at that point. But I would say I'd love to see more ask.
Yeah. How do you, like, if you're looking for a new position, inquire if the company, or try to get a feel if the company has some of those best practices in place, what their culture is like? What's the best way to tell that, to find that?
Yeah, I always, and it's probably not the norm, but I always like reaching out to folks that work at the company, not even the ones that I ask for. I just randomly ping folks and say, "Hey, I'm considering a job at your company. Could you tell me a little bit about the culture?" Glassdoor will tell you a lot about a culture, which is great. You can see the good and the bad, and that's actually for an organization that I once applied for. I looked on Glassdoor, I didn't see the best of ratings, and so I approached them and I said, "Hey, I noticed on Glassdoor, your CEO rating's pretty low, and there's a lot of really negative things going on. Can you tell me a little bit more what's happening here?" I'm not making it up. It's on the website. It's open. It's public. But it also depends on how you're approaching it, right? If you're coming in guns blazing and saying, "I want to know, I'm the next best thing, next to sliced bread coming in for you to hire me." Yes, have that confidence, but it's also like thinking about how can I help bring solutions, right? So it's also trying to find out, do I want to work here? Is this a problem I want to work through, right? And so I think that's another fantastic place to see, again, what a culture is like, taking pulse of random employees and just say, "Hey, what do you think?" And I've done that in every company I've worked at, because there's nothing like someone that's working there to tell you. High tenure is also a good thing. When I see high tenure, I'm like, okay, someone is here for a while, but why? I want to know more. And that happened with where I worked first at Hyatt. Phenomenal tenure there and phenomenal culture. And where I'm at now at CDW, same thing. And they mirror a lot with each other. So it's telling me, Priscilla, you're following something similar, right? You're following a culture that really makes you feel like you can grow from. So I would say take a look at both of those.
Wow. Yeah, for sure. Someone mentioned LinkedIn learning courses. Definitely a great place to get some knowledge. How do you feel all of that stuff impacts you? And should you be adding that stuff to your resume? Things like that?
I would say not necessarily your resume. You can say active on LinkedIn, right? Everyone's pretty much there. That's a professional. I hope. If you're not, make sure you're on LinkedIn, because you're missing the boat. But yes, and I would say look into investing in yourself. That's actually something I write a lot about and I speak a lot about, because we're not used to investing in ourselves. We're used to investing in others around us. And as you invest more and more, like I personally have a coach for myself. I have a financial coach, a health coach. I have a life coach. Because I think there's always things that others don't see in you, or you may not see in yourself, that they see in you, right? Or they just help take you to that 1% better, where you want to go. Also for accountability. So whether it's a coach, a friend, a mentor, a sponsor, really, really start taking a look. Again, it goes back to that strategy. What is it that you're focusing on? Because I get it. We're still working through what this year looks like, what next year looks like, right? For us personally and professionally. And it can be overwhelming, right? You're like, where do I start? That's a lot, Priscilla. You just threw a lot.
Yeah.
Little bits, right? And find out. I say, again, take it one step at a time. I'm where I'm at, and I coach folks where they are at now, because it took me time to learn it too. So I want to make sure I'm also doing what I practice.
Yeah, for sure. Connect with your networks, join groups, stay on top of new tools all the time. Make sure that you're subscribed to newsletters, industry feeds. Just really, bring, when you're coming on board to a new company, for sure. And even if you've been there for a while, right? The only thing that's going to move you up is knowledge. It's knowledge. It's not doing the same thing every single day. It's always advancing yourself. When you advance yourself, other people see that and gravitate towards that and say, okay, she needs to be somewhere else, or he. We have
Yeah.
someone that watches.
The last thing I would share,
Mhm.
Sandra, is with our employee business resource groups, our affinity groups, right, our DEI groups,
Yep.
because they're doing more and more externally now. And so those are great ways to connect with an organization, to learn from our community firsthand. Hey, what's going on in this company? Or is it really a great place to work? Right. And
Yeah.
and tell me more of the why, or what are the positives and what are the places they're still working through. And for me, that's been really great to get to know other companies just as a professional, or even as the founder of Latinas Rising Up in HR, because I can
Yeah.
see through the caliber of the talent too of, oh, this is where they're at in their journey, right? This is where they're working towards. This is what their focuses are. And most of the time, they want to recruit too, right? So it's a great place to see, if it's a place for you.
Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. This has been such a great conversation. Thank you so much. But I want to definitely make sure that we plug in your book, the second edition that was just launched recently. So tell us a little bit about that book, or both of them.
Of
Yeah.
course, happy to. So this past week on Saturday, October 15th, we had our first inaugural Latinas Rising Up in HR Summit, Leadership Summit, and book launch. And so book number 2 goes into 15 more stories of contributing authors, all HR professionals at some point in their career or currently, and just sharing really what they went through. And not just professionally, they're also talking personally. So it's a marriage of the two, because we're no longer just work face, right? It's a blend of the both. And
Yeah.
so really wanted to give a space for Latinas in HR to have a place to share their story. As we all know, stories are so powerful. And my hope is that we can continue doing something like this. All proceeds go to our scholarship that we'll be focusing on next year.
Yay, that is so awesome. And guys, we launched our United Latinas shop. So if you go to unitedlatinas.com/shop, you will find Priscilla's book, and then a link right to her the Amazon page where we sell them. So
Hi, Sandra. Thank you for being
Yeah.
always so supportive, and everyone that's listening. Yes, don't give up. I agree. Knowledge is power, and your story can make a ripple effect. And the more we believe that and the more we act on it, the more we can make a change. So thank you so much for having me.
Amen. Amen. I hope you guys enjoyed this break. We will see you next week. We'll have a new guest host next week, and have a blessed one, guys. Take care.
Take
Bye-bye.
care.